Llyod, you festering fopdoodle. Is this the way to the weapon store you found? Through the barren wastes? What a blasted fool. Though moving through these ruins seems promising. Blast! Llyod, you led us right into a trap. Runish, run-fest ratsbane.
Hello folks, and welcome to Dice Chatter. Frostgrave Season 3 is finally here, and a sweet old woman named Karen is going to show us her bad side.
Can't you read the spell?
My name is Donnie, and with a new Frostgrave season comes new ideas, new visuals, and new ways to portray this awesome and amazing tabletop game. Some of you may even notice some little tweaks I've done here and there during the video, so feel free to comment and let me know if what you are seeing tickles your fancy. Either way, we have a battle report to watch, so without further ado, let's dive in.
Are you one of those tickle-brained wagtails I've heard about?
Karen Crone the Harridan, a witch from the Morrow Marshlands. She and her nephew Llyod will travel the wastes of the world in search of treasure and magical mysteries, though they are not complete without their trusty warband. A man-at-arms, an infantryman, an archer for the long threats, a trusty giant frog, because why not, and of course a couple thieves and thugs to grab all the loose change. Today we are dipping into the Frostgrave Perilous Dark tome and playing Scenario 1, Writhing Fumes. I did a quick test play of this scenario, and holy mother, it is a tough one. Since I'd rather not have our main character Karen Crone and her new crew completely perish in Scenario 1, I have decided to change a few things and add some of my own twists and narrative flair, though it's still one of the hardest games I have ever played. Make sure to check out the scenario and the description for more details on the changes. The overall goal for Karen and her cronies is the same though. She has to reach the other side of the table and escape through the barred door. And once past that barrier, they believe they can find that mysterious magical weapon store. And by the looks of everything, the table is very sharp. A couple treasure chests are out there for the taking, and some spelunking dwarves with ranged weaponry are going to be a tough group to quarrel against. Does Karen Crone have what it takes to reach the other side of the table?
Of course I do, you eel-skinned inchworm.
Well, let's get on into the battle.
Oh, what did we brew up today? Ooh, a bottle of burrowing.
Of course, before the match, Karen took the time to brew a potion, and she did it successfully. This swampy tonic will go to her apprentice nearby on the table. Turn 1 will now officially begin. Karen the witch will start things off, casting a curse on the dwarf a few paces in front of her. And a 17 on the die is more than enough to give the dwarf a -2 to all rolls. Both the giant frog and the infantryman will join together and double move up to the dwarf that has been cursed. They're hoping to team up and take down the surprised foe. And let's not forget about the thief, who will run up the left side of the table, charging towards the treasure hidden in those ruins. Llyod is ready for his apprenticeship debut and will locate the dwarf high atop this stone riser and cast a curse. An 18 is more than successful for the spellcaster, and another foe has been slowed down for the time being. He will then move up the table into a safe hiding location. The archer will follow suit by making his way up some stairs into a strong position and fire an arrow at the dwarf that has been cursed. A +1 to the foes, +1, and the dwarf takes exactly 10 damage, killing this mechanical man. A good shot for the rookie. The thief and infantryman will make their way up the table, staying close to the spellcasting apprentice, but things now are going to pass on over to the creature phase. This hulking Ballista dwarf will start things off and see the cluster of friends and foes, and takes a shot. The target was randomized, and the giant frog was an easy target. So easy, in fact, the blast deals 6 damage, which is enough to take down the glass cannon creature. The other hulking dwarf will also take aim at the archer, though he does have some light cover. This changes the attack bonuses a bit, and our sharpshooter friend has done enough to dodge the gunpowder blast. To finish off the creature phase, a number of dwarves are moving around the table, getting into strong combat positions as well as chasing down important targets. They're starting to move in and press, giving Karen a bit to think about, though she does have 2 more soldiers to move. A thief charges up the right side, seeking out the treasure. Miss Crone is being a touch greedy, it seems. But for the thug, he is able to charge up and assist his friend, though had to double move to give the helping hand. This will end turn number 1. For the curse spell, the dwarf is unable to knock off the effect, and it looks like from the ether, another thug dwarf has spawned in. This could definitely get a bit dicey for Karen. Things begin with Karen moving forward and getting sights down the table. She has an opening and will call on the wind and rain, casting fog far down the table. This creates a dense visual barrier, confusing those pesky dwarves and their gunpowder blasts. Over now to the thug, who must scoot forward and is now able to swing his axe into the dwarf. But with that attack roll, 5 damage flies back into the fighter, cutting him deep. Despite this failure, this gives the infantryman a helping hand and will stab into the dwarf. And the dice gods seem to be on his side, dealing 10 damage, killing his stout foe. To start the apprentice phase, Llyod will move up the table and see the rugged dwarf nearby and cast a curse on his foe. Again, a 16 on the die in this instance is more than successful. Despite what Karen thinks of her apprentice, he seems to be casting spells quite well. Over to the archer, who will fire an arrow at the dwarf that was cursed. The ammunition is released and pushes in 9 damage, leaving the short man at 1 HP. And if this wasn't enough, the man-at-arms will charge forward as well. Unfortunately, it is a double move to get up to the fighter, but at least they are both stuck in for some combat later in the turn. And to finish off the apprentice phase, this thief will use those speedy legs to run up past Llyod and get right next to this treasure chest. This means the creature phase will now begin. These dwarves now get a chance to cause a bit of havoc. Right away, this green guy here will attack the nearby thug, and he deals a good 5 damage to the poor fighter. Hopefully Karen and her crew can start slamming in some damage. The other crazed dwarf will decide to attack the infantryman in front of him. Even chances for the fighters, and Karen's soldier deals in a big 7 damage back to his enemy. Though these dwarves are not done yet, the one who spawned in not too long ago will take a double move and get right all up in Karen's business. This could definitely spell some disaster in future turns. For the final close combat of the round, another strong dwarf will attack the man-at-arms. A couple dice are rolled, and the big shield on this model is not enough to stop the onslaught of his opponent, taking a good amount of damage. Though there are 2 ranged dwarves who have yet to act. One has a good look on the thief, but the target does have a bit of cover to protect him. The shot is fired, and it whizzes by the thief, dealing no damage. The other gunpowder dwarf will end the creature phase with a ranged volley towards Llyod, a very thin angle which will give the fighter a bit of cover, and this shot also harmlessly flies on by our apprentice. The soldier phase will begin, and to finish off the round, the one-armed thief will rush forward and have another action to pick up the treasure that is hiding under these ruins. Hopefully the greed of Karen and her crew won't be their downfall. And we can't forget about this thug and the dwarf infantryman in close combat. The dice are rolled, and it is a tie, which means both attacks land, killing the thug outright, and a big 9 damage pierces into the dwarf. A good and deadly battle. Though the turn is not finished, and we need to see if the curse spell stays on this swampy foe, and the will is strong on this fighter. The fog spell also will stay put for another round, and of course, let's not forget about the enemies spawning into the game. 2 dwarf thugs will spawn into the battle right in combat with Karen's allies. I will say, a lot of fights and combat in this second battle round, and this is one tough scenario. I don't know what Karen has in store, but some good things need to happen. We move on to turn number 3, where we start with the wizard phase. Karen has a dwarf in front of her, and she will attack her enemy. We roll some dice, and our wizard nails a natural 20 and just eviscerates the poor dwarf. She will then use the rest of her movement to get up the steps to some higher ground. She needs a good vantage point on the battlefield. Nearby, Karen was the infantryman, who will attack the damaged dwarf in front of him. As the spear pierces in, it does some damage, but not enough to take out the swampy stout man. Over to the apprentice phase, where only Llyod will activate. He will make his way up the table a bit, and then attempt to steal health on the damaged dwarf right in front of the man-at-arms. The die roll was not enough to cast the spell, but with some empowerment, Llyod will suck the life from this dwarf and take no damage. Karen may underestimate you, Llyod, but I sure don't. The creature phase will now begin, and many metallic foes will take their actions. For the dwarves with the big guns, one here is blocked by the fog and sees no other targets, and will elect to just stay put. The other, though, has an open shot towards the man-at-arms. And even though this blast made a big kaboom, the armor of the fighter was just enough to hold off any damage. But these dwarfs are not done yet. The damaged one here wants to stop the thief from running away with some treasure and forces some combat. For a second action, he will attack the thief. But with an unexpected swing of the dagger, the thief prevails, killing the enemy fighter. Back over to the mess of combats. We have a few to get into. The dwarf on the right side of the screen will attack first, getting some assistance from his pal. And a strong roll does enough damage to take out the thug from play. And then this dwarf will scoot in and help surround the infantryman. This definitely doesn't look good for Karen's fighter. The dwarf in the middle will now activate and take that big fight bonus and swing it into the infantryman. And to no one's surprise, that is one dead fighter. This leaves room for this dwarf to move up towards the man-at-arms, and of course this other one now has the ability to move over and up the steps to Karen and take a chance fighting this creepy-ass woman. But this was probably not the best idea, as Karen can pack a punch, dealing the point of damage to remove the fighter from the table. This turns things over to the soldier phase, where the archer will go first and move up across these ruins. Along the way, an arrow will fly down at the dwarf near the man-at-arms. And it does manage to find its mark, dealing a couple points of damage into the fighter. For the man-at-arms himself, he will go on the offensive, which is a big risk to take. He moves towards the deadly ranged ballista dwarf and has another action to fight the enemy. And luckily for him, he pushes in a bit of damage, enough to keep this enemy fighter occupied for another turn. For the rest of the leftover fighters, we have a couple thieves for Karen who need to activate. Both will take their treasures and find spots on the table closer to the exit, but also out of the peering eyes of these dangerous dwarves. This will end turn number 3. Brutal, deadly, and dangerous are these dwarves. For Karen, it seems the fog spell will stay put for another round, all the while another dwarf will spawn in. A tough infantryman dwarf. But at least it is far away from the last few surviving members of her crew. We begin turn number 4 and of course start with Karen in the wizard phase. She has plans to make a quick exit here while she still can. She will move over and get a good look at the barred door and cast teleport. She needs a 14 on the die for the plan to work, and she gets a 10, but she is more than happy to take a bit of damage to get right next to the exit. This moves things over to Llyod in the apprentice phase, where he will attempt to cast a curse on the ranged dwarf near Karen. And like the good apprentice he is, he will take a point of damage empowering the spell. He wants to give his wizard the best chance of success, and will spend his second action moving closer to the barred door. The creature phase will begin with a number of double moves. Of course, this dwarf wants to get a bit friendly with the man-at-arms and is now in a position to give his ally a bit of assistance. For this pair of mechanical dwarves, they only have a good view of the archer. They will take their stout legs and rush them up the steps to their combatant. Though, fortunately for the archer, they are just out of range for some tussling. This will turn things over to the big ballista dwarf who is looking for a target and sees the wizard nearby. The ballista fires at Karen and the missile whizzes by, slamming into the wall behind her. Maybe Llyod deserves a little credit here?
Maybe you're right.
The other big dwarf will take its turn, attacking the man-at-arms in front of it. And even with the bonus from his ally, the man-at-arms is strong and puts up a fight, dealing 2 damage back into the dwarf. This leads us to the soldier phase, where our archer will start to run away, but will fire an arrow back at the encroaching dwarves. Though it seems the stress of the nearby combatants has affected the archer's accuracy. Both of the thieves carrying some valuable treasure will double move and get in range of Karen so that they can activate with her next turn and hope to get out of this hellhole. And to finish off turn number 4, the man-at-arms will just pass his turn over, in hopes that he can hold off the dwarven onslaught for one more turn. This will end things for each crew. The fog actually dissipates this time around, and the curse on the big ranged dwarf is too much and stays on the mechanical creature. And let's not forget about 2 more dwarves spawning in, luckily far away from the mess of things. Karen and her crew are falling apart, and they need a break in this next battle round.
Help me with this, you Nimrod.
To break through the door, Karen needs to roll a 9 or above with the help of her fighter. This is crucial if anyone is to escape. And I'd say a natural 20 will definitely do the trick. The barrier is crushed and our tough wizard moves through the ruins, hopefully onto this weapon shop. This will also allow both of the thieves and treasure tokens to be taken through this opening as well. Karen got what she wanted, but at what expense? For the apprentice phase, Llyod will take all of his movement and get through the door as well. This leaves a few fighters on the table, and their fate is death. The man-at-arms could not break through the ballista and thug behind him, falling in combat to his ferocious foe. For the archer, he could not escape the clutches of the enclosing dwarves, and he too falls during the battle. Though, let's look at the Warband as a whole. Pretty much everyone died during the battle except for our spellcasters and those carrying the treasure. After a series of injury and death rolls, the archer unfortunately did not make it. Karen will need to buy a replacement, and it seems a crossbowman will do for the meantime. Hopefully this man can keep up with the strong shooting. Though Karen did level up twice, as she will gain a small boost to her hit points and make Curse easier to cast. For the treasure, she managed to wrangle up 120 gold crowns and a grimoire of Bone Dart, a good spell to add to her arsenal on her next level up. Wow, I tweaked the rules, switched up some of the original combatants, and I will say that this was one tough battle. I'd even argue the dice gods were overall on my side for this combat, and Karen barely squeaked through. Yet, I had a blast, and I hope you did too. A big thank you to my patrons for sticking around and helping me pursue some tabletop dreams. And a big thank you to all of you fine folks who comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. It's truly a big help, and all of this wouldn't be possible without your input. So until our next battle, folks, I want to thank you all for watching, and of course, happy gaming.